Hello and welcome back to the Lex Talk Stuff podcast. I'm your host, Lex Perillo. And as of recording today, it is the day before my birthday. And by the time it airs, it will be my birthday. So, yeah, that's going to be fun and interesting. I had this whole thing planned, but apparently, like, bad weather, and I'm just rescheduling, like, a party. But I am gonna have like a steak dinner for my birthday. I was just like, I'm just gonna have a steak dinner and a big thing of like Auntie Anne's pretzels, just because I can. Um, uh,
Those are nice.
I gotta introduce my guest. Sorry. Um, so my guest here today is Jack Nelson. He is a very dear friend of mine who I've apparently known since high school. Like when you told me that that
Hello.
you and I were like in the same high school together for a brief period of time.
Yeah, we've known each other for a little bit. I mean, we knew each other in high school tangentially, but we didn't really start hanging out until college. But glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Lex. I'm excited to talk about Marvel stuff with you, and happy early birthday.
Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. But yeah, like I don't quite recall the day like we technically re-met. Like I don't recall a day because were you in like the first day class at New England Tech?
I was. I remember I sat next to Zach, and you know, our professor asked all of the usual like go around the room and introduce yourself questions, and then I was like mentally preparing because I hate doing those questions.
Yeah.
And Zach sat right next to me and said the exact same stuff that I was planning on saying. The fact that I like to skateboard and that I wanted to be a script writer slash screenplay, and then that he was also wearing funky socks. And he's like, "You just stole my whole flow."
Because I, I I remember I don't remember everyone that day, like the very first day, because I remember Zach, I remember Miguel, I remember Tessa, I remember Ben. I think it was mainly because we were all just sitting waiting for class, and then you just came in with like the rest of everyone else, like Alyssa and Liam and Aiden and whatnot,
Yeah,
and all
I
those
definitely
guys.
remember not being there early. So
Yeah, no, like, and here we are, like 5 years later.
recording podcasts and working, and I'm
Yeah,
glad at least all of us have something. There's not a single one of us that's like struggling.
yeah. I think the only struggle right now is us all hanging out.
Yeah, everyone's got different schedules. Everyone's working like crazy hours. People are moved away, but
Yeah,
eventually.
yeah. One day, I mean, Tessa and I were talking, and we're saying like, if I had the ability, if my job required me to like move out west or into like New Hampshire, that she was like, well, I would go with you, but I also don't want to leave my family, so take my family with you. I'd be like, yeah, let's take everyone with us. Let's take my family, your family, our friends. Let's just all go in like vehicles and drive like Mad Max Fury Road when they're heading towards the sandstorm. Just
We'll
be
all be
like,
transplants.
yep, just go into Valhalla. Woo!
We ride through the shiny chrome gates.
For Immortan Joe! I'm gonna show her that movie tomorrow.
The Fury Road.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Got to show her Furiosa too.
Oh, absolutely. What's so fun? I know we'll get to the topic in a minute, but I just want to say, like Furiosa. Oh my God, I like that was really good. Not as good as Fury Road, but Furiosa, like it feels like a movie that no one would make today. Like it feels like
Yeah,
of an older era, but also not. You know what I mean?
I heard that it just made its money back. It just broke even,
Oh, finally.
which is good because that means they'll actually be able to do a sequel, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind another Mad Max movie with um with Tom Hardy, but I don't think Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy are going to work together again. Did you know that they're banned from working with each other now?
Why do they not like each other?
Apparently, when they were filming Fury Road, so they were in like the deserts of Australia the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
and
The rough
just
outback.
yeah, and it was just hot and sweaty, and they were there for long days, and they would get into arguments and fights, and it apparently got so ugly that now they're like banned from working with each other.
It sounds like they were just getting into character, considering the first half of that movie they hold guns to each other's head.
Yeah, I think it's also just a level of frustration.
Yeah.
Like maybe now they're like, yeah, we both acted like assholes, and they're like, yeah, it was the heat, wasn't it? Yeah, it was the heat. I'm sorry. And then maybe they'll do another movie together, like next year or the year after. That'd be cool. I like them together.
Yeah, being on site sounds tough. I was talking with some coworkers about the filming of Apocalypse Now, and one of my coworkers was saying all the rough things that Coppola had to deal with for that movie. The fact that like half of his crew got malaria, and Dennis Hopper was on drugs the entire time, and they couldn't understand what Marlon Brando was saying.
In all fairness, no one understands what Marlon Brando is saying. He's both
That's
ahead
fair.
of his time and insane.
After he got to a certain age, he was just like, I made my money back in the 50s. I'm going to stick cotton balls in my mouth when you ask me to play Don Vito.
Yeah. I so now for the topic for today.
The
Uh
topic at hand, yes.
yes, we're talking about like, our feelings on the state of the MCU and like what they did right, what they did wrong, and maybe we can try to fix that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
so
hope. I mean, like, we're not a multi-billion dollar franchise, but we have 2 cents that we can throw in.
yeah, I'd say so. I mean, we're customers.
Yeah.
But I don't
You
want
you definitely know you're a lot more like comic booky than I because I watched the movies and got into the comic books that way. But
oh,
you're a lot more into this world.
well, that's also the same thing for me. Like it started with cartoons and then movies and then video games and shows and then the comics. Like I got there last.
Okay.
Like that's the funny thing. People are like, "Oh, you've been reading comics your whole life?" Yes, but not as frequently as I do now. Like that
That's
was
fair because if you think about it, like when were you born? 2001.
yes.
So yeah, you would have been only 6, 7 when the first movie came out. So it kind of is your whole life.
Yeah. But yeah,
Granted,
so
I'm not much older, but
I know. Every time Tess talks about my birthday, and I say, yeah, 2001, and she's just like, I always am surprised when you say and, because it's difficult to hear anybody say and.
yeah, yeah, that's how I feel being the only one in the group that's from 1998.
I mean, yeah. um, but yeah, want to present your first notes?
Sure. Let's start with, I broke it down per phase. I will put a disclaimer. I've not really watched a lot of the phase 4 and phase 5 stuff yet, so most of my thoughts are on the first 3 phases. But I'll start with, phase 1, which, phase 1 I thought was a very strong sort of slew of origin movies, because you started with Iron Man. Iron Man sort of set the bar because it was a really strong first performance on a character who a lot of people didn't really care about. And I would think that a lot of people probably didn't even know Iron Man before he became as popular as he was for the MCU.
Oh yeah,
And, he brought in.
in fact, sorry to cut you off here, but that reminded me of something. So apparently, in the early days, you can find the reviews online when the first Iron Man movie was coming out. There were critics that were looking at the movie being like, "Why is he a man? I thought he was a robot."
Yeah, people didn't understand who this character was. I mean, he wasn't like. I wouldn't say he was one of Marvel's like A-listers the same way that like Spider-Man was. I mean, they already had made the first three. Yeah, they had made the Sam Raimi trilogy at that point. So Iron Man was kind of like a B-lister, but they really knocked it out of the park with that first one, and they they started the MCU with that movie, and it's still a good movie. It still holds up. The visual effects still look good. The story's simple but effective. You know,
Yeah.
his mentor ends up being his villain. That's pretty standard. That's literally Star Wars, but it works well. And then we move on to Incredible Hulk, which Incredible Hulk was a little bit of a stumble, but I think the Hulk is hard. He's like a hard character to relate to people, because a lot of people don't relate with that like over the top anger, like can't control yourself sort of thing.
I mean, I think it
That and they
can
had to.
now. I think if you did a Hulk movie now and got the right person, I think you could make an exceptional Hulk movie. But also the funny
Yeah, that's
thing
fair.
is,
Because I.
oh sorry, like the funny thing is like Hulk has like other stories. Like everyone says like, "Oh, do World War Hulk or Planet Hulk." And it's like, yeah, that's those stories are great, but also there's a lot of other stuff. Like Hulk has villains.
Mhm.
Like Hulk has supervillains that he fights. He's not just running from the government the whole time. But also
Yeah.
like that another thing that is difficult with the Hulk, and I was talking to my parents about this, and I was saying like one thing that like saddens me about like some of the MCU stuff is that they don't go into in depth on certain characters. Like Hawkeye has this whole intricate backstory that they never get into, and when they started doing that in the show, they cut it out. It's a deleted scene of like his mom being like a con artist, and he just was a kid with a really good aim and used that to his advantage. And then as they were arresting his
Oh,
mom, they were arresting him too, and then like seemingly a shield agent looked at him and be like, "Wait, I'll take care of this kid." And then,
get
years
this
later.
kid in the Avengers Initiative.
Not even the Avengers Initiative, just like a potential shield agent. But
That's fair.
yeah, like they don't get into that because in the comics, like he grew up in a circus of crime. He had like a brother, and he was a character called Trickshot, and has this history with Black Widow, and they don't get into that in the movies. Like they also don't do that with the Hulk. Like Bruce Banner, the reason, like there's a bit of a psychotic reason why Bruce turns into the Hulk, because it's like, well, the gamma radiation, why don't you just turn big and green and it's you? It's because Bruce also has a lot of pent up rage from when he was a child. He grew up in an extremely abusive home, and then his mom died, and then he and his father fought, and then he Bruce accidentally pushed his dad when he was an adult onto like the gravestone of their mom, and yeah, he died there. And
Mm.
like Bruce has so much trauma and pent up anger that it just manifested into the Hulk. So
That's like
yeah.
cosmic irony, but it seems very fitting for turning into the Hulk.
Yeah, I think it adds a layer of depth, but I was telling that to my parents and they're like, I don't want to hear the whole Hulk's life story. Like and that's the thing with like people with like nerds like us and then the average audience. The average audience doesn't care about like
Yeah.
the in-depth character stuff. They're like to quote my parents, they were like, "All right, you're a superhero. Get off the therapist couch and go save someone."
Go do something. Yeah.
And I'm
I
like,
feel like, looking at the reviews right now, the Incredible Hulk for the first phase, the first six movies, the Incredible Hulk kind of was rated less than the other movies of its phase. I think that's just because people don't connect with the Hulk the same way they connect with Iron Man or Thor or Captain America.
yeah.
And I don't think Edward Norton was Mark Ruffalo was the much better casting choice for Bruce Banner. I don't think Edward Norton did it as good.
I think he's good. I think he's a good like solo Hulk. It would have been interesting to have seen him with like RDJ. That like
Yeah, I wonder how they would have bounced off each other.
yeah, Yeah, I think it would have been
Because to be
interesting.
honest with you, I don't know what Edward Norton's done. I mean, he was in Birdman. I saw that one, but I don't know what he's done in the last like 10, 15 years.
Well, I mean, he's also done like Red Dragon, America History X. What was that movie with Selma Hayek where she plays a character? She plays a very well-known figure with a oh my god, what's the name? Selma. Let me take a look. Selma Hayek. Like her movies. Frida. He worked on Frida.
Oh, it's Frida Kahlo.
Yeah. Yeah, the funny
Okay,
thing is Edward Norton, apparently every movie he does, he rewrites the script.
okay.
Yeah, like
I mean, if you can rewrite it good enough.
he rewrote some of the script for the Incredible Hulk movie, but they didn't use any of his ideas. And with Red Dragon, he made brand new pages.
Hmm.
Frida, he basically rewrote all of Frida, but they never credited him. And he basically made the rest of America History X all by himself.
Okay. He seems pretty talented. I mean, like, yeah, to rewrite the whole script, does it just rewrite his lines or the entire thing?
I think it was the entire thing.
Okay.
But
But I feel like we're diverging from the topic.
yeah, sorry.
He's gone off. He hasn't done anything in the MCU for 20 years. But yeah, for the rest of the movies, I felt like they were, Iron Man 2 came next, and that was a pretty solid follow up to Iron Man 3, Iron Man 1, I think. But
Yeah.
the Iron Man movies, I feel like they came a little too quickly because they wrapped up. They wrapped up his third movie before they even gave any of the other Avengers a sequel.
Yeah. I feel like the Iron Man movies, like I think they got like slightly worse as time went on. Like it was like Iron Man 1 is great, Iron Man 2 is good, Iron Man 3 is okay.
Iron Man 3, I don't really have much memories of. Like I remember the house, he gets his house destroyed. He hangs out with that kid.
Yeah.
The
And
villain is the Mandarin,
yeah.
but it's not really the Mandarin, and that's kind of as much as I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I think the movie's gotten a little better as time has gone on. Like I think I
Okay,
was too hard on it, but I still love the first one the most.
yeah, it's a good. They couldn't have picked a better like actor as well as a better character to start the MCU with.
Mhm. Yeah,
Because
and
he's kind of understandable, like both on a human level and like an American level, because he's an arms dealer. He makes weapons, and then he realizes, oh shit, my weapons are being used by terrible people, and they're killing terrible people, and I don't want to use these weapons anymore. I'm gonna make a better weapon. It's a very American way of solving a problem. Someone has weapons, so you make a better weapon to fight them with.
yeah.
But yeah, then after that we move on to Thor, and Thor is pretty good. I think they had missteps with they made Thor funnier in the subsequent movies, and I think that first movie sort of showed that people didn't relate with Thor that well because he is a god. People
Yeah.
don't have godly problems like Thor does, and I think that's why they made him goofier as the movies went on. But I still think that first one was a good origin story, telling him, he's sort of arrogant, he's sort of bashful. He gets his powers taken away because Anthony Hopkins like, you're arrogant and bashful, be gone, son. And then he goes to Earth, meets Jane Foster, falls in love, gets the Thor powers back. A lot of these movies follow that sort of hero's journey where the character is in a comfortable position in their life. They get their shit rocked, and then they have to, solve the problem by the end of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of movie formulas, but yeah, I definitely think that like the MCU definitely has their like formula and
Yeah.
but like it
I
was
mean, they
it
kind of had to rely on it because these first movies are all these origin movies setting up the character. When we get to like Thor Ragnarok or like let's see. I mean, obviously the Avengers, but like specifically Thor Ragnarok, you already know what Thor's about, so they kind of just drop him into that action without sort of giving you much backstory. If you watch Thor Ragnarok without watching the first two or any of the Avengers movies, you're like, who is this guy? What is he doing? Why is there a big green guy that he's so happy to see?
yeah. But also, like, the funny thing, and now, like, you go on to Captain America: The First Avenger, which I have like a history with, because I remember going to the theaters to see Thor because he was in the cartoons that I was loving at the time. And when I
Mhm.
sat in the theaters, I saw the trailer for Captain America: The First Avenger. My dad was sitting next to me, and he's like, "Do you want to go see that?" And I'm like, "No." I Because I knew Captain America's story already. I was like, "Why do I need to see the movie to see it? I know Captain America's story." And also, I don't think Captain America is interesting when he's not with the Avengers. And
Okay.
and
Have
then
you changed that opinion since, or do you still
oh,
think he's not super
absolutely.
interesting?
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. If my opinion has changed. Like when I saw the movie, I enjoyed it, and then I forgot
I mean,
about
Chris
it.
Evans definitely added a lot of. I think he was a good cast choice too. Him and RDJ were, I think, the best cast choices.
Yeah, like what's funny is yeah, with the first Avenger, like uh Marvel Studios has said the two best things that ever happened to them. The first thing was casting Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, and two, it was having Joe Johnston, who I actually edited an interview for at my job, who directed the movie because he wanted it to be a period piece movie.
Hmm. I think it works. I think it works as a. I mean, like it's still very marbleized, very sort of standard in that way, but I think it sort of. I like the scenes where they're doing all of the propaganda tours, and he's like dancing with the backup dancers, and
Yeah.
he's like really he's not into it because he's like, I did all of this training, I got the super soldier serum, and this is what you're gonna do with me.
Yeah, but it's still a cool sequence. I love that sequence. And it
Yeah,
make and it
and then
make
they intersperse it with bits where he's like leading soldiers and he's like charging buildings, and it is funny the fact that they have the right before they give him the nice shield, he's got the little heater shield, but he's also got a gun.
yeah. But yeah, so we get Captain America: The First Avenger, and like I was saying, like my story with that is I only watched it a couple times, and then I didn't watch it for like years, and I forgot everything that happened in that movie. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of the weakest movie of the bunch. And then a few months before Endgame, I was in my basement. I found the DVD of the first Avenger, and then I put it in, and I was just like, you know what, fuck it. Like, why not? Let's just watch it, see what happens. And it was like me watching it all over again for the first time because I hadn't seen it in so long. And I was just like, oh my god, this movie is amazing! Why did I say this was the worst one? This is the second best one.
I mean, the effects are still. I'm still impressed by the fact that they were able to take Chris Evans' head and put it on the poor actor who had to play his body.
Yeah. But yeah, and then we get to like the first Avengers movie, which is amazing and I think still holds up very, very well.
Speaking of, I just want to, for Captain America, the end scene of that I think is really what starts to establish the MCU. The fact that he gets frozen, and that's kind of like science fiction wobbly wobbly because he just dives into ice and gets frozen naturally. But when he gets revived and he's like in the modern day, and he realizes that he's hanging out with Nick Fury and he's part of Shield, and they're going to be recruiting him into the Avengers Initiative. That sort of is like the moment where you're like, oh shit, this is all going to be like super connected. And then obviously the Avengers is the next movie that comes out, and they're all together. But it's just cool seeing that like sort of the first really big after credits moment that Marvel sort of pioneered. Now I feel like a ton of movies to the point where every time I go to the movie. We'll sit and we'll look up, and I'll have to like look on my phone if there's an after credit scene to stick around for.
Yeah, it does get a little exhausting.
Yeah, but it was interesting when they started it.
But yeah, so the first Avengers comes out and it's a smash hit. Like they like
Makes
though
like billions of dollars.
yeah, and the the movie's just a huge success, and I think it's ranked in like one of the top 100 movies of all time.
Kevin Feige would have made less money by stealing the printing press, like the National Mint, than this movie made him.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's a good movie. It's a very solid, like, it took them 5 movies to get here, but they did a really good job setting up all of the characters. Other than, I mean, Black Widow was in Iron Man 2, and then Hawkeye was in Thor. So they were, they didn't just spring them on us, but it would have been nice if those two got an origin movie. But I understand already cranking out 5 movies and then making the sixth one be the Avengers team up.
Yeah. I mean, you want to know what's something funny? And I don't know if you know this. Ben does not like the first Avengers movie at all.
No, why not? Is he given a reason?
He said like he thinks that the humor doesn't land very well and that there's too many Whedonisms in the movie, and I'm like, I can see what you mean by that, but I think the Whedonisms work for this movie. I think they also kind of work for Age of Ultron, but not as well. But
Yeah. I mean, like the Avengers, it feels like a world-ending threat, but it also only sort of influences New York because it's like one of those things where it's, the aliens are coming to New York and they're like, we got to save New York. And the idea is if they don't save New York, they're going to lose the planet. But at the moment, they're just fighting in New York. Whereas Ultron, it's like Ultron is like all around the world, already.
yeah, but yeah, that's the crazy thing like with this movie. Like this is the first time we had ever like gotten a huge team up movie like this before. Yeah, we had X-Men, but they were already formed. Like they're technically already a team, and
Yeah.
like like X-Men and Fantastic Four don't count, but like Avengers is individuals coming together to be one.
Yeah. And plus, they had to make all of the movies prior to sort of establish them. Like X Men, you get the idea. It's a bunch of mutants that live together. The Fantastic Four, they're the homies from college that just hang out together. Avengers, they have to have a reason to get together.
Yeah. But yeah, like so do you also want to go through like the rest of the movies from or are you just going like phase 1 and then we'll just
Yeah, I got
mention the
notes
rest?
on 1 through 3
I mean, go
if
ahead.
you want. Yeah. So that covers pretty much phase one. Avengers is a great sort of capstone and also like a good bridging, like a jumping off point for phases 2 and 3. Because phases 2 and 3, I wrote in my notes, phases 2 sort of more focus on like the team ups and the crossovers. Because even though Black Widow was in Iron Man 2, she has a much bigger part in the Captain America Winter Soldier movie. I mean, she's basically the female lead in that.
Yeah.
Guardians comes after Guardians of the Galaxy. Great movies, some of my favorites. And if you think about it, they don't really have any connection with the MCU, like the major overarching storyline of the MCU, until they get together with Thor at the end of or in Infinity War.
Uh
Like they're kind of just doing their own thing, which I think is really cool because it adds sort of like width to the universe. Like it shows that there's people out there doing their own thing that aren't really connected with the stuff that's going on Earth. You have Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World, which I think were like okay movies, but they're still nice to have. They're not winning any awards. They're not MCU's finest offerings.
my
But they had
biggest
Winter Soldier, which is good. Guardians was good. Avengers: Age of Ultron, another team up movie, which was not as good as the first Avengers, but I think it gets a bad rap. I think it's better than people make it seem.
I think it's aged better now. Like I think you can rewatch Age of Ultron now. Like you can rewatch it once and then look at the world and then look at Ultron because now we live in the world of AI. To us, that was science fiction back then. Now
Yeah,
AI
well, sure. We
is.
don't have actual Ultron. I would be terrified if we had actual Ultron, but yeah, I know. I get what you're saying. Like, it's a weird new world to live in.
Yeah, and so I think because of like AI now, in fact, we had two like actors and writer strikes go on because of AI. So like
Yeah,
so
might
now
have a third. Honestly, I've heard that rumors about the people that do like CG and animating might do the same.
I mean, I think they deserve to do that because I think they're the most underappreciated.
Yeah,
Yeah. But so with, but yeah, what's funny is like before we go on to like 3, I like one of my things. My only problem with like phase 2 is I feel like the second half is stronger than the first. but also I feel like another thing is that the movie plots are a little too big.
Okay, like for the individual movies, like Iron Man 3 or Thor.
Yes, because like Iron Man 3, the president's kidnapped. Where the hell are the Avengers? Is Captain America gonna show up to save the president? And it's like, nah, Iron
Yeah.
Man's got this. There's not even a like phone call where he's like, I gotta call Cap. And then he's like, damn it, my phone's busted. Like something like that. Like, why didn't Thor like be like, hey Shield, I need your help with something. Can you send Hawkeye my way to shoot some of the Tark elves? And then
Can't you spare anyone?
in Winter Soldier, helicarriers are shooting each other out of the sky in Washington D.C. Iron Man's not gonna show up.
Yeah, that's in my notes too. The fact that the world starts to feel a little too big and too small, where it's like all of these different characters are dealing with like these honestly threats that should be Avengers level, and no one else is helping them. I mean, like Cap had Black Widow at least, but
Yeah.
it's not much.
I mean, like here's what I think a lot of the non main Avengers movies did right. Like I know I'm jumping ahead a bit. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, and even Captain Marvel. I think got it right with the whole like they found a way to have the story be its own place without like alerting the rest of the world. Because in Guardians of the Galaxy, it's in space. None of the Avengers are
Yeah,
going to show up.
none of
Like
the Avengers even knew about them.
yeah, Ant-Man, it they keep it so under wraps that they don't and all they're like talking about is like, Pym Industries. Like they're not worried about like the world and the explosion just happens at Pym Industries. The Avengers aren't gonna react to a building blowing up in San Francisco. They're just gonna be like,
Yeah,
let the police handle that.
we still have police, right? We don't have to answer everything.
Yeah. I mean, Doctor Strange, yes, the dark dimension is flying in, but Doctor Strange makes it so that it didn't happen. So
Yeah,
that way
it doesn't
it's,
sound like anyone knew about what how was happening in Doctor Strange until he was already done with it.
yeah, like it was self-contained. And Black Panther, like all of that shit just happened to Wakanda. Like,
Yeah, the
it,
whole point of Wakanda being it's like an isolationist nation. No one, he's not going to allow anyone in.
yeah. And then Captain Marvel, it takes place in the 90s. And even then, there is no quite world ending threat. It's more of like preventing the world ending threat from happening.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, you still have like Nick Fury in it, and they give the backstory of where he gets his eye patch from. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's not really. It's very clandestine, very like under government secret sort of story.
yeah. It just my point is like I like that those plots are like more self contained without having to be like, where the hell is everyone else? It'd be like, well,
Yeah,
because they wouldn't hear about this, or this wouldn't happen, or this wouldn't happen. Like I think they do a better job with that than like some of the other movies. I mean, Captain America 3, everyone's there, but you
yeah,
know,
and they call it Civil War for a reason. But like, I feel like as bad a rap as Age of Ultron gets, it really sets up for Civil War because the whole what is it, the Slovakian Accord? What do they call them?
the Sokovia Accords.
Sokovian Accords. Slovakia is a real place. Sokovian Accords. They sort of start because of Age of Ultron, and they're like, we need better oversight. And honestly, I think that is one of the deeper, like, I really like Civil War from the fact that it's a deeper sort of critical look at superheroes. Like, should superheroes be controlled? Because if they're not controlled, they Sokovia shit and they blow up an entire city.
Yeah. Well, I blame that one more on Tony than like the rest of the Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, he created Ultron, but he didn't know what he was doing. But it also makes sense for him to be the character that's like, we need more regulation because I do not want to fuck things up like this again.
Yeah. What's funny
And it
is,
makes total sense for Cap to be like, I don't want regulation because I fought the Nazis and I know what like government regulation does to people.
yeah, and also what happened in Winter Soldier, he finds out, oh, the government's actually not as good as I thought they were.
Yeah, I mean they were Hydra was a part of them, so yeah, I can see why he was. It's very these movies set up the two of them very well to be opposed to each other in Civil War.
Yeah. But before we get into like Civil War, like you want to talk about Ant-Man? You have any notes on that one?
Not a ton. I thought, like you said, it was just a good sort of self-contained adventure. I'm not a huge fan of the Ant-Man trilogy. Granted, I've only seen one and two, and I thought two was weaker than the first one, but it's just fine. I think he's just kind of a side, goofy character, sort of the same way they play out like the newer version of Thor or like the newer Hulk. He's just a side character. Fun stories, nothing super notable about him.
I do love the Ant-Man movies. I think Quantumania just kind of ruined the trilogy for me because we'll get into Quantumania and stuff like that later.
Yeah, that'll be you. I've not seen that one yet, so
Yeah. Um but yeah, and like Phase 3, which arguably might be the best.
oh yeah, it's got Infinity War in it, hands down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, Infinity War, Ant-Man the Wasp, Captain Marvel, Endgame, and Spider-Man Far From Home.
And Black Panther too.
I thought I said Black Panther. Oh, you're right. I didn't say
Possibly.
Black Panther. My bad.
We talked about it, but yeah, Black Panther, like, yeah, I don't think there's a single movie in this phase that I would consider like lacking. Maybe Captain Marvel, but even that one wasn't as bad as I would say like Thor: The Dark World or Iron Man 3 was.
Yeah, but yeah, like I think that Phase 3 might be the best because what notes would you say like made like 3 the best?
I feel like they really sort of. I mean, like if you think about it, like in a three-act structure, the phase one was the build-up, like the origin stories. Phase two was the sort of rising conflict, and Age of Ultron sort of paved the way to phase three, where there were still a couple of individual origin stories like Doctor Strange or Black Panther or Captain Marvel, but all of them also fed back into Infinity War and sort of showed you where the end game was going to be. Pardon my pun, but those final couple team ups, they really nailed it on the head with every character felt like they belonged to be there. It was definitely like not only a world ending but like a universal level threat, so it makes sense that even like the space characters like the Guardians and Captain Marvel came. And it's just cool seeing they worked real hard for like a whole decade to make these movies possible, and then they got everyone back at the end to kick Thanos' ass.
Yeah, and it's something that I didn't think we would ever see in like a live action
Oh god,
superhero
yeah.
movie.
Thank God they got it out in 2019. Can you imagine if it was one more year and they were trying to release it in 2020 during the middle of COVID?
That would have been crazy.
Yeah, I remember going to see Endgame in theaters. I went with my parents, and they were like, "Oh, we don't need to get tickets. We show up for like a 4:30 showing. It's completely sold out. We can't get into the movie until like 8:30."
I actually got to see the movie a little early on like a Thursday night
Oh,
or
nice! Like the midnight showing.
actually it wasn't even midnight. It was around like it was around like 9 o'clock or something like that, 8:30, 9 o'clock. Do you
Okay.
know Sam LaCroix?
Uh, no, the name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's
Huh.
my cousin, and so his dad CJ
Mm-hmm.
knew that his company was doing like an sort of end game like early access thing, just only like a couple of hours before the rest of the world sees it. And so he asked me if I wanted to come, and so I went with CJ and his family. His wife Nina loves the movies, We were enjoying the hell out of the movie. It was great. I went back and saw Endgame a second time.
Okay.
Yeah,
It was, yeah. Like it was good.
yeah. Yeah, no, I thought they built it all up very well, and like especially with like Civil War. With Civil War, the funny thing is, uh, like I've read the comic, and I feel like their motivations in the comic don't make that much sense.
Yeah, what are their motivations in the comic?
So the motivations of the comic are similar. So it's like Iron Man wants to register the Avengers with the Superhero Registration Act where they work with Shield. They'll get like training and housing and free dental and all of that stuff. And Captain
Yeah,
America,
free dents for all the teeth that get knocked out fighting people.
yeah. And Captain America is like, "No, we are not signing up for the government. No, that's we shouldn't be like beholden to them." Even though like if you knew the characters, like which I feel like Mark Millar didn't, uh it would be the opposite. Iron Man would be like, "No, fuck the government," and Captain America would be like, "No, we must respect the government." Meanwhile, I think the motivation in the movies makes more sense because Cap has seen that the government has more like hidden agendas, and that's
Yeah.
and he's like, I don't know. We like the safest hands might still be our own because if we do, what if we go someplace and they won't let us? And then uh Iron Man's makes sense because he's someone that's made a lot of mistakes in his life. He made Ultron, he feels guilty, and he wants to rectify it in some way possible. Like Iron Man is always about him trying to redeem himself and make himself a better person than he was before, which I think is very interesting that people don't really talk about with Iron Man.
Yes, that's one of the points I have, but I was saving that for when we started talking about Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah. Like but yeah, like his so their motivations make more sense in the movie. I think the movie's structured very well, and I think it blends a lot of characters together very well. I just think I wish the scope was bigger. Like I love the scope in the comic a little more, but I like that the motivations make more sense in the movie. So I like them both for different reasons.
I get you. So you're saying that you'd want the scope of the comics, but the motivation from the movies?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Because it does feel a little small. Because if it's supposed to, Civil War is supposed to be this big sort of superhero civil war, the fact that they only have one battle at an airport together is sort of anticlimactic, but it's still a fun fight scene. It's just not a lot of people.
Oh, it's great. I love rewatching it. It's just it feels more like a small conflict at work, a scuffle between coworkers.
Yeah, rather than an actual civil war.
Yeah, and with the Avengers being divided and they need to come together for Infinity War, and even then they weren't all together. And then Endgame, they all came together to try to defeat this big enemy, granted at a cost, and ends Iron Man's big character arc of him going from selfish billionaire jerk to selfless hero that sacrificed himself to save the universe.
Yeah, I think that's a very maybe compelling. I don't know many people in real life that would sacrifice themselves to save the universe, but I think it's something that people can try to relate to at least.
Yeah, but yeah, but yeah, so phase 1 through 3 I think are excellent. They have a couple of movies that I think are like okay, but like I don't think there's been a single like bad MCU
No,
movie
I
from
wouldn't
that
say any
point.
of these movies are bad. I mean, yeah, definitely throw them into like the C plus category for a couple of these. Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World, Captain Marvel, but none of them I think are bad. Not compared to. Do you want to go to Phase 4 now, or do you still want to talk about Phase 3? Because I got the stuff I have seen in Phase 4. I got some opinions on that.
Well, I think it's time to get to phase 4 and 5. Share your thoughts first.
Right. So the first thing we had in Phase 4 was Black Widow, which I was actually really excited about because I like Black Widow as a character, and I always felt bad because she was interesting enough that she should have gotten her own instead of Iron Man 2. We should have gotten a Black Widow movie. We should have gotten at least something because like her backstory would have been really interesting to like learn about when she was still alive. And then that movie came out, and it was kind of mid. And then the editing and like all of the COVID troubles made it even worse. And I remember just watching. There's like the scene where they're getting uh what's his name, Soviet Captain America, a Red Guardian. They're getting Red Guardian out of the gulag, and there's the scene where the sister is like firing a rocket out of the chopper, and like the blast like blows her back into the chopper, and it just is edited so terribly. It's so bad that I had to go wash my eyeballs after watching that scene. Like we could have made something better than that in school. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was just oh.
I
And
think.
it felt so bad because like that movie should have been good. That movie could have been good if it was released when it was relevant. But like we already killed off Black Widow, so not a lot of people I feel like cared. But it was interesting, you know. It could have been.
Yeah, I think also they
Then there
went
was the
too
whole
big.
snafu with like Scarlett Johansson wanted like she was supposed to get a certain amount of the revenue, but since COVID happened, they just released it on Disney Plus instead. And then she had that whole snafu with them where it was like she needed more money because she had a deal with them, and since there was technically no ticket sales, she didn't get as much money as she was promised.
Yeah, and Disney was just hoarding it, and yeah, that was a
Yeah.
mess.
So that's what I thought about Black Widow. I saw Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi I thought was good. I honestly thought it was a really good kung fu movie that was brought down by the rest of the Marvel stuff. I thought if it was less connected with the Marvel stuff, I thought it would have been more interesting.
I
Just give me more kung fu scenes. Like that shit was cool.
I mean, we didn't need the Great Devourer Dragon. Like, you could have removed that, but like I think the movie itself actually really really good. I love watching that
Oh
movie.
yeah. I liked it from the standpoint that it didn't most of the time it didn't feel like a Marvel movie because it was a kung fu movie. It was fun. Oh, I love the first scene where his parents get together and they sort of like have a sprawl like a sparring date. Like they sort of start to love each other because they're both good fighters. But oh, and like the bus scene's great, and the scene where they're going down the scaffolding. It's just really fun kung fu stuff, and I think the Marvel stuff in it kind of makes it a little more lame. I thought it would have been better as just more of a straightforward kung fu movie with maybe a couple of Marvel references. But at this point, we were already in Phase 4, so you can't really get away from that interconnected Marvelness at this point.
Yeah, but yeah, we had that, and yeah, we had those movies. We had Black Widow. We had
Mhm.
Shang Chi. We had No Way Home that year, right?
No Way Home. I'm not sure about the year, but it was Phase 4 because Spider-Man: Far From Home was the last movie in Phase 3.
Yeah, like I'm looking at some of the stuff that was released. Oh, we forgot Eternals.
I didn't see that one. My parents did. They said it was bad.
I kind of liked it.
I have no opinion. I didn't see it, other than the fact that I've seen like the visuals of it, and I do think it's funny that like a Eternal was like busting out of the planet, and sort of no one noticed.
Yeah, yeah, I think that, yeah. I think some of the movie could have been handled a little better.
I like I said, I can't say because I haven't seen it, but I have seen WandaVision, which was their first like strictly Marvel like TV production. Because I know they did like the Punisher and Daredevil and all that stuff before, and that stuff was good, but that got like folded into the MCU, and
Yeah,
whereas
that.
WandaVision was like the first big like you are part of the MCU sort of
Yeah,
programming. And I thought it started really interesting with like the black and white television and the fact that they were spoofing sitcoms of the era. But then as it went on, it got more and more generic, and I can't even talk about that final battle between her and Agatha because it was just a big CGI floating fireball fest that was so lame.
although I'd argue that like at the end where she managed to get the incantation around Agatha was kind of cool. Where she
Yeah,
like
it was a clever way to defeat her. I just wish it visually was more appealing.
yeah. And Yeah, but yeah, WandaVision I actually really enjoyed. Falcon and Winter Soldier, Falcon and Winter Soldier I also enjoyed. I thought it helped Sam earn the Captain America role better.
I'm gonna be real with you. I did not like Falcon Winter Soldier
Really? Why?
because I think, other than the fact that they had to character assassinate her in order to make her the villain, but I thought Carly was in the right because if you have a big world-shaking climactic event where half of the population just disappears one day and then like 5 years later they all come back, you're gonna have to do a lot of logistical work in order to get those people that are back, like jobs and houses and food. That's a lot of shit to deal with.
I
And her whole thing being like, we need to figure out how to help these people is very valid. And then by the end of the show, they're like, well, shit, he's kind of right. How do we make her the villain? Oh, she's gonna blow up a train station or whatever she blew up at the end.
Well, I would argue that I think we would be on her side a little more if they like showed what it was like during like the time of the snap. I'm not calling it the blip, it's the snap.
Yeah.
Like the
No, I get that. It's definitely one of those things where it's like it's an idea that's very scary, but they don't really highlight it. People just disappear at the end of Infinity War. You see a little bit of the fallout in Endgame, and then people just come back. I've always wondered. I like the little memes where it's like, what happened to the people that were like snapped away on a plane? Do they get snapped back like 30,000 feet into the air?
Yeah, right. Like, but yeah, like we don't see the ramifications. I want like what was the good side of the snap? What were some of the benefits? Like,
Other than the fact that like there was more resources to go around, there probably wasn't much. I mean, like he just basically killed. Unless people, if people didn't bring him back, he essentially killed half of the universe.
yeah, I would have liked a scene where like I had this idea of like I don't know which character, but like some character like talking to maybe like Bruce Banner and whatnot, and then being like, you know, maybe Thanos might have been onto something, and they're like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, look what happened to the world." I was like, I know, we lost so many people, and so many like, and so much destruction, chaos that was happening, and the suicide rate went up like 3%, but we also were able to put new people into office. We were able to do this. We were able to do that. Like I would have liked to have seen like the good stuff in there. Like the thing,
Yeah,
like, and then being like, yeah, maybe it's a question we'll never know. And I would have liked if some characters like, if anything, what Thanos was doing was kind of redundant, considering we already got someone that deals with population control in the universe. I don't know how they're gonna feel about when they know Galactus exists and then end credit.
they just name drop Galactus.
Yeah, like yeah, being like, yeah, he exists in the universe. He's at the farthest end of the universe.
He's taking his time. He's like the galactic vacuum cleaner.
Yeah,
But I don't know. I think they just can't do that because Marvel has the MCU has to appeal to like the broadest audience possible, and I don't think there's enough people that are interested in that sort of more deep philosophical thoughts of like maybe it was a good thing that we killed half the universe. I
yeah.
think most people just kind of looked. I mean, I know there was that meme where it's Thanos is right, but I think most people just kind of look at it like he's the villain. He has to be stopped, and I kind of agree. I don't think his plan was nuanced enough in order to make it actually worth considering.
Well, also, I think with that, I don't think Thanos was a clean cut good guy. Like, he had good
No,
intentions. But also, and they're like, why didn't he, like, double the resources? I would argue he already thought of that, but kind of liked the idea of killing people more. Like,
yeah.
cause I think he is bloodthirsty. He just doesn't display it.
I
Like,
mean the comics, I feel like if there was a synthesis between him from the movies and the comics, I think it would work because his whole thing in the comics is just that he is like in love with Lady Death and he wants to sort of treat her and send all of these souls to her. He's kind of more insane, but I think there's an interesting sort of well. I want to get into the. Do you mind if I do a little delve into the topic that I was thinking between Iron Man and Thanos?
Sure.
All right, so I think Iron Man and Thanos are excellent foils for each other because Iron Man's whole character arc is he starts off, like you said, billionaire bastard playboy who doesn't really care about much except for himself. By the end, he learns to love and care for people and ultimately sacrifices himself for the betterment of other people. And I think Thanos is a good example of that because in Thanos' mind, he sacrifices basically everything. He even sacrifices his own daughter, who he genuinely loves. He genuinely is very upset that he has to kill Gamora, but he thinks that he's doing the right thing by doing so. And I think that would have been an excellent sort of foil. Like, there's a scene that I would love to have been able to write where it's just him, it's just Thanos and Tony left on whatever planet that was that they fought on in Infinity War. And they basically have a whole conversation about how Thanos thinks he's doing the right thing because that's sort of what Tony thinks. He thinks that Tony thinks that he can protect people by being above him, and that's sort of where Ultron comes from. He thinks that he can protect people with his technology, with his skills, with his he wants to almost see himself as a god, the same way that Thanos wants to see himself as. And I think Thanos is the negative version of Tony. And the movies don't really do a good job of highlighting that. And I think, in my opinion, if I was able to rewrite it, I would change it so that Thanos' idea was that he was like a true nihilist. He wanted to get rid of all life because he, in his mind, thought that life equaled struggle, and he didn't want people to struggle anymore. And Tony would listen to this, and Tony would sort of be like, maybe he's right. I mean, my whole life I spent like hurting people, and not the people that I'm close to, like God, what's her name? What's Gwyneth Paltrow's character's name?
Pepper.
Pepper, right? Pepper. He's hurt Pepper a ton, and he feels bad about his dog. Well, his dog's not born yet, but he eventually in Endgame feels bad about having to potentially leave his daughter. He doesn't want to leave his family that he's made because he doesn't want to hurt them. He doesn't want to put them in a position where they can suffer because of his choices. So if Thanos explained to him, like, I am such a nihilist that I think it's better for people to not exist in order to save them from the suffering, I think Tony would be like, maybe he's got a point. Obviously, he wouldn't follow through with it. I still think that Tony would end up being the good guy and saving the day, but I think there is a convincing argument that Thanos could make that would make Tony sort of see his side for a little bit.
Yeah, and I think let's speed round like phase 4 and 5 and just think of brief thoughts.
Mostly on you, because I've not seen anything except for Guardians 3. I've not seen anything out of phase 5.
Okay, so we've already covered. So like WandaVision, really liked it. Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Started off strong. Yep.
Yep, also really liked Falcon and Winter Soldier. I know you didn't. I like parts of Loki. I think Sylvie just kind of killed it for me. And I haven't seen season 2 yet. We eventually will, me and Tess.
Neither have I.
But also the Hawkeye show. I thought it was great up until the ending.
Okay, now I've seen the Hawkeye show, so
yeah, the Hawkeye show. I felt like the ending was rushed. We also, with Spider-Man No Way Home, I thought it was really good. I prefer Homecoming more because it's a more traditional Spider-Man movie, but I do like No Way Home, and I love that costume at the end. It's fantastic, and I love the camaraderie between everyone and the villains.
No Way Home I thought was a good first movie experience, but then if you watch it outside of the movie, it's weird because they build in like pauses for you to like be like, oh, clap, clap, clap when the other Spider-Man come in, but it feels like when you already know the secret, it's like
yeah,
it's like I'm watching a sitcom without the laugh track,
Yeah. We also get Moon Knight, which was which was fine. I think it should have been darker and more grittier and more grounded and less about like the gods, even though that's where his power comes from, but that's me.
Okay. Egyptian, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, so Moon Knight was fine. Doctor Strange 2, I personally liked. I know the movie has a lot of flaws, but I think the acting's really good. I think the visuals are great, and I think that the Sam Raimi flavor of the movie really saves it.
Okay.
Uh, we all, I haven't seen Miss Marvel, but I want to. What If was fine. It had like 3 good episodes, and that was it. Um,
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I thought it was like it was. I'd rather have that. I'd have less of like Falcon and Winter Soldier and have more What If.
yeah, they were well done. We also got uh, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which I thought was a great movie. I think they did the best with what they could, and it was actually really good. Not as good as the first uh, the movie, but still really good.
Mhm.
And Thor: Love and Thunder, that might be the worst MCU movie I've ever seen.
Damn. Yeah, I've heard not good things about that. I haven't seen it myself,
It
but
it's a superhero Adam Sandler movie.
gross.
Yeah, and but yeah, I saw Quantumania, which to me Quantumania was like it's a fun like Kang is great in it, and everything else falls flat on its face because it's not a good conclusion to the Ant-Man trilogy, and it's not a good build up to the Avengers movies.
Okay.
And
When is the next Avengers movie, by the way?
Kang Dynasty,
2025?
yeah, like Kang
Okay.
Dynasty something. But I didn't see She-Hulk. I only saw the clips online and only care about Daredevil in there. Which is weird because I actually like She-Hulk in comics. I just don't think the show does her justice.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't watch any other shows from there. Like I didn't watch Secret Invasion. I did like Werewolf by Night. It was a good short. I also love the Guardians of
That
the
one was
Gal
good, yeah.
the
Forget
Guardians of the
that's an MCU product.
Yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special was really fun. And of course, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which was the last MCU movie I ever saw that was in theaters.
Hmm.
And it's
I think
phenomenal.
they do like the Guardians are pretty incredible because each movie I think is better than the last.
Mm. I still think they're all pretty great, and I can't wait to see what James Gunn does in DC.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. With all the images you've been sharing of the costumes and stuff.
Yeah. And yeah, so what do you think? So now here's the here's the nitty gritty, like the big conclusion. What can we do? Like, what should happen to make these movies better? What do you think?
Ooh, I got some notes on this. So my thoughts is that phases 1 through 3 I feel are very focused. Phase 1 Origins, Phase 2 Team Up, Phase 3 Endgame. Phases 4 plus feel a little unfocused. They don't have like a strong character like superhero team up going on. They don't have a big threat. I mean, they have Kang, but the real life Jonathan Majors shit kind of got in the way of that. And who knows what they're going to do with the main villain now? If it can be Kang, if they're going to recast him, or if they're going to do a different villain entirely. But it just feels sort of directionless now. There's not a lot of like somehow the world feels both too small and too big at the same time because all of the shows that you have to watch in order to like catch up with the movies, because if you don't watch the shows you're going to be left out in the cold, like at least back in like phases 1 and 2, if you didn't see like all of the movies it doesn't really matter because it was just like tiny little references that would pop up from movie to movie, like one little insignia, one little Hydra symbol, one little whatever. And now it's like if you don't watch like all episodes of She-Hulk, you go into the next movie and you're like, why did this happen? Why is Daredevil here? What is he doing?
Yeah, they broke themselves in a corner where like everyone has to see everything or it doesn't make sense and it's frustrating.
Yeah, they've oversaturated the market. They were the kings of it. They sort of came up with this whole shared universe, multi like media empire, and they pumped too much crap into the pipeline, and now people are burnt out on it. And I think honestly, that's why subversive movies, superhero movies, like the Joker or like The Boys or like Invincible are super popular right now because people are tired of the straight laced superhero and they want to see something a little bit more critical in the superhero genre.
Or they just want to see something good because X-Men is very much like within like the superhero realm with their own flavor, but people have been loving X-Men 97.
I've heard good things about that. I got to check that out at some point.
Oh, me too. I'm going to catch up. I'm catching up on the animated series and then I'm going to watch that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think
And then the other,
but go ahead.
you
Sorry.
go ahead. I shared enough.
Uh I think the biggest problem with the MCU is I'll put it down to a few points. Uh Too many products coming out in one year. Uh,
Oversaturated, yeah.
I think rushing to build up a roster for the next Avengers movie instead of letting the characters breathe and build up first. Because I feel like the reason why we don't care about some of these new characters is because they're pumping them out too fast.
Yeah, and it's like it's weird because it's like they make some shows for these characters, but the shows just don't feel as intimate as like a movie does, you know?
Yeah, which is weird because I feel like with the show, you should spend more time with them. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I saw the first episode of Miss Marvel, and I thought it was like interestingly done. I like the way that they had her like graffiti and stencils appear like in her vision
mhm.
because it was like her being like an over imaginative teenager. But I don't know, it just didn't feel very superhero-y because she was just having a conflict with her parents.
Yeah, but also I think you should hire people that aren't just people you tell them to do what to make. I think they should hire more creatives that, want to create something and actually know and love these characters. Not just someone being like, oh yeah, I think I saw a Marvel movie once at like 3 a.m., but I make like indie movies. And then they're like, you're hired, we'll tell you what to make. And it's, and it,
Yeah, just point the camera.
yeah, I'm tired of that because you can find a compilation of like people that work at Marvel now that are like, I didn't read comics. And there was one person that was told, don't read the comics. I'm like, what?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, just respect the source material a bit more. Um, you know, like you can have your own twist on things, but don't like reinvent the wheel on some things.
Yeah, you gotta understand what makes the original character tick before you adapt them and try to subvert them.
Yeah, and I think like one of the most important things about the whole thing is let each movie like be like its own movie. Like there are
Yeah,
times
not
where
connect everything.
yeah, there are times where I don't want the Fantastic Four movie to try to explain what's going to happen in the next 7 movies. I just want a good Fantastic Four movie. I don't care how it connects. I just want a good Fantastic Four movie. Sometimes
What
that's
do you
all
think
I
the
just
chances of
want.
that happening?
I mean, I hope it's good because like if the Fantastic Four movie is really good, that will get me back into Marvel. I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm definitely gonna go see. But like, if I want to see more Marvel stuff, then Fantastic Four needs to hook me.
Yeah, I get you. I'm excited to see what they do. Marissa and I have been watching The Bear, and the guy that plays like the cousin in that show is going to be the Thing, and Pedro Pascal, and I'm not sure who's going to play Sue Storm or Johnny, but I'm excited. I like the Fantastic Four. I hope they bring in Doctor Doom. I mean, shit, I think he should have been the main villain apart, or like Saga 2 or whatever they call this portion of the Marvel stuff now. But
Well, I also don't want them to
King's
rush
fine.
Doom. I don't want them to rush Doom.
Yeah, I get you. He is like legitimately my favorite Marvel villain. So,
Same. But yeah, and
but yeah, that's pretty much what I have written. Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered the points. They just build up. They're building up a little too fast. They're making everything too interconnected, and they don't really give things time to breathe. I think they should have taken like a couple years break after Endgame, but Hollywood doesn't work that way. You got to be making money every year. You can't tell everyone to take a year long vacation.
although I think what they should have done is they should have just finished the other trilogies. Like do Doctor Strange 2 and 3,
Right.
Ant-Man 3, Captain Marvel 2 and 3, regardless how you feel about it. Guardians 3, Ant-Man 3, Black Panther 2 and 3, just finish it up and maybe do like one Hulk movie or like a Moon Knight movie and then wrap up. And then be like, okay, we're going away for a few years.
Yeah, give people some time to decompress because I think it's just like you said, an oversaturation of content. I think we're just all burnt out on these movies. It's been like, God, it's getting close to 20 years because what was Iron Man? 2008, 2007,
2008.
2008. So we're 16 years into this Marvel stuff. Like, that's a lot of content. That's a lot of shit to sift through.
Yeah, I think we covered all the points.
Yeah, I got nothing else to add. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me on this podcast, man.
Yeah, of course. What are you excited for with Deadpool and Wolverine, and what do you hope out of it?
Uh, to be honest with you, I'm not like super excited because I think Deadpool's fine. I like the first movie. The second movie I didn't think was as good. Uh, to be honest with you, I'm not super excited about it because I feel bad that they keep dragging Hugh Jackman into the Wolverine role. It's just like he had his time. He had plenty of movies. I don't think he wants to really do. I mean, granted, he must want to do it enough. They must be paying him enough that he wants to do it. But I don't know. I don't need to see him as Wolverine again, and I don't really need to see another Deadpool movie. I'll see it because I think it's funny. It's a funny, like they write well, but yeah, I'm not like super keen on it. I'm more keen on the Fantastic Four movie. Like if that one's good, that will probably get me to watch more MCU stuff again.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think with Wolverine, I think if this is like the final one where he gets to play a different kind of Wolverine with a comic book costume, and then that's the last one, okay, I'm good with that. I can live with that.
Yeah, well, I have to see. It's gonna be a real shame if he doesn't have like a good performance in this one. Whereas like I feel like Logan was a great cap to his character.
Yeah, but so yeah, I think this was great. Thank you so much for coming on, Jack.
Of course, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I gotta go clean my pool.
Once again, happy birthday.
Thank you again.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you very much. All right, and see you guys next week on Lex Talk Stuff.
Bye bye.
Bye.